wanted to take the time to focus on speech design with you because in this lesson we're going to be working on polishing up those speeches so that you can deliver them coming up soon in week 6. So with that being said, in order for us to polish up and make sure that you're where you're at on your speech design, we need to go over several things. And I think this will really help you to improve from those week 4 assignments if you had any issues with that as well. So, all right, let's go ahead and jump in. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is in terms of speech design is called the stairway to speech success. So, if you could imagine this would literally look like a stairway or stairs, leading up to a second floor, if that's what you want to imagine. So, you want to look at the bottom step first. So, in order to design a speech in a way that and organize a speech and all of those different things, even deliver a speech in a way that's effective, you want to start at the first step. And so that's going to be that very bottom step, and that's going to be finding the right topic. Now, you should have already done this in our week 3 assignment. And remember, this is a persuasive speech, so we want to focus on something that's really persuasive. And if you remember watching that video, I talked about how we want to choose a topic that you can advocate for or against. So avoid the pet peeve thing that's mentioned in the directions, and instead try to find one that you should have found one already that you feel passionate about in week 3. So I gave you several examples then, and hopefully you found a topic that really interests you. So with that being said, that moves us to the second step. And the second step is going to be bring that topic into focus. That's interesting. How do we do this? Well, when we choose a topic, then, and I'm going to speak, I want to stop right there for just a second. I'm going to talk about speech design in terms of not only the speech assignment we're doing in the course, but also in any speech design that you might do in your lives as a whole, but professionally and personally. So I hope that helps a little bit on these concepts. So on the second step, we want to bring that topic into focus. We want to make sure that the topic is not too long, not too short. We want to make sure that it fits the time length that we've been allowed to deliver the speech in, and we want to make sure it's a good fit for the audience as well. So a topic such as, if you're delivering a speech, let's say we're in a physical classroom and you're delivering a speech in front of your fellow classmates who are already enrolled in college, and your topic is why you should, excuse me, why you should attend college, well, that's probably not a good fit for that audience because they're already enrolled in college. They know why they should attend college. So that speech might not interest them, but you might change it up a little bit and say, how to make the most out of your college experience. All right. And so that's going to really interest your audience, and it's going to bring that topic into focus, and it's probably going to fit in the time length you've been given to deliver the speech. So then we go up to the third step, and that's going to be find material and support. So once we have a topic in mind, that's fantastic, but where do we go from there? Well, we're going to do what we already did in week 3, and we're going to find research that we want to include in our speech. So, going back to the example I've given in a few instructor sessions so far, let's say that for our persuasive speech in this course, I chose the topic of why everyone should learn how to perform proper CPR. Well, in that week 3 assignment, I would have found 2 pieces of research to include in that speech from reliable sources that can help to support my points. So I think I listed in those previously, I said that, I might get information or research from the American Heart Association and also, the Medical Today Medical Journal. So that's going to be that support. Support can also come in different ways, and we'll talk about that later in the speech, but you're going to want to make sure that you've got some hardcore research in there, and then you can add additional support as well. And that moves us up. We're going to go up to the next step on the stairway, and that is step 4, design the speech. So what parts do we need for the speech? Well, we need a well-designed introduction, a body, and a conclusion. And I always tell my students, that sounds good in theory, but a lot of times students go, yeah, I need an introduction, a body, and a conclusion, just like writing a paper. But how do you design an effective introduction, body, and conclusion? And I think that is where a lot of students get stumped. They don't know what to do with that. So we're going to talk about in this meeting how to do that, how to design introductions, body, and conclusions which are appealing to your audience and follow proper speech design. Next is going to be step 5, organize the speech. There's different ways you can organize a speech, but for the most part, as long as you're really diving into your introductions, your body, and your conclusions, it's going to work itself out and organize itself. And I'll show you how to do that in just a moment as well. Then you're going to move up to step 6, and that's practice the speech. I think this is a step that a lot of students miss. So they type out the speech, they've got everything they need, they've done their research, they've got their topic, they've really just got this great speech on paper. But the problem is they never practice the speech. And so they don't know if they're working in the time limits they've been allowed because they've never practiced it. They don't know when to pause when they need to pause, or emphasize things when they need to emphasize things, because they never said it out loud. So don't skip that 6th step, guys. Always practice the speech. You can practice it with friends and family. You can stand in front of a bathroom mirror and practice it that way, whatever you need to do, but make sure that you are practicing the speech. And then that moves us up to the final step, step 7, and that's just do it. Present the speech. You've made it this far. All right. So let's talk about step 1 a little bit more. Now, you've already chosen your topic in week 3, so we're going to talk about later on in life whenever you need to choose a topic for a speech, maybe for a different course or even in your personal or professional lives. So we're going to kind of look at it from that manner. So step 1 is find the right topic. When you choose a topic, you can start by choosing one that you know a lot about. Some of the speeches I've heard or things I've heard students say before is, well, I chose this topic because I really didn't know anything about it, and so I thought it might be good for me to learn about it. Well, that sounds good in theory, but you kind of want to choose a topic that you already know something on and go from there. It'll make it a lot easier on you, and plus it just, it allows you to not start at square one. So choose one that you already know something or a lot about. Also, choose a topic that you want to know more about. So let's say I already know about how to eat healthy, and I do, and how to watch what you're eating during the day and make sure that you're getting the right amount of proteins and carbs and so forth. Well, I know a lot on that subject, but that's something I also wouldn't mind learning more about. So that would be a good topic choice for me. And then brainstorming. Brainstorming is a great way to come up with topics. It's just a method of generating ideas for speech topics by just free association of words and ideas. Basically, sit down with a notebook and a pen and just start writing down any topic that comes to mind and then narrow it down from there. So you'll need to look at, when you choose the right topic, you'll need to look at what are you interested in, what do you hope to accomplish, do you know enough to speak on that subject, can I make it interesting and useful for my audience, and also can I share experiences with this, or can I relate it to the real world in some way. And then step 2, we want to focus your topic. So with this, once you find something you're interested in, you want to make sure to examine it and see if it's too broad or too short. So let me give you a few examples here. Let's say that you had 4 minutes for a speech, just 4 minutes. What do you think about the topics I have listed here? Now, these would be informative speech topics, but the topic of cancer, is that too broad, too short, or just right? Well, that's going to be too broad, especially for 4 minutes. It would be hard to cover the topic of just breast cancer in four minutes, but especially cancer as a whole, because you have to think about it. There are numerous different types of cancers. It's just too broad. Now, the next one is how to bake an amazing lemon pound cake. Too broad, too short, or just right? Well, that one would probably be just right. You would find ways to demonstrate and also find ways to shorten the time a little bit. For example, you can have your ingredients laid out. You could show people how to make it, and you could show them how to mix it up. And of course, you wouldn't be able to bake it in 4 minutes, but you could have a pre-made pound cake and show people, here's the finished product. So it could be done. And then the last one, how to dust a bookshelf. Well, that's probably too short. I mean, it's it's not very hard to dust a bookshelf. So 4 minutes might almost be agony trying to figure out a way to do 4 minutes for a speech like that. So that moves us into, again, focusing down that topic. So two important principles you need to look at is you have to have a clear idea of what you want to accomplish. You need to know the end goal in mind. You also need to work to determine the general purpose and specific purpose of your speech, because that's going to help you to keep that topic focused. When we don't know what our general purpose is and our specific purpose, a lot of times we go off on a tangent with things. So we go totally off topic. But if we know our general purpose and our specific purpose, when we're writing our speech, we can always go back to that and go, you know what, am I still doing exactly what I said I wanted to do? So the general purpose is basically the overall goal of your speech. The specific purpose is specifically what are you looking to accomplish in your speech. So an example I give you here on the screen is, let's say your topic was, let's say you were doing an informative speech topic on donating blood, or excuse me, not informative, a persuasive speech topic on donating blood. So your general purpose would be, right here, would be to persuade. And then your specific purpose would be, you just take that down and say, to persuade, and then elaborate on it. My audience to help save a life and donate blood. All right. And so when you're writing your speech, you can always come back to that and go, am I still persuading people? Am I still persuading them to help save a life and donate blood? And if the answer is no, then you need to revisit whatever it is that you're writing in your speech. So a few things to think about when creating a specific purpose statement is my statement one single statement, or is it, too long? Did I accidentally create it as a question? You want to avoid all that. Does it meet the assignment requirements? Whatever it is. For example, if you were assigned in a different class, you were assigned an informative speech topic, and you chose donating blood, but you were doing it from the standpoint of actually, you know what? Let's say that you're in a different course. They asked you to do an informative speech on, or they asked you to do an informative speech, and you chose the topic of why you shouldn't text and drive. Well, that would not meet the assignment requirements, because why you shouldn't text and drive is persuasive. It's not informative. So you want to make sure that whatever you choose lines up with the assignment requirements. You also need to look at, can I accomplish this in the time allotted? And that goes back to what we were talking about right here. The topic of cancer as a whole would just be too broad for 4 minutes. And so, no, that would not work. You'd need to find a different topic, or at least focus that topic down some. Is the purpose relevant to my audience? Is it too trivial? Is it too technical? So you wouldn't want to give overly technical speech to a group of beginners on a certain subject, because that would just be confusing and they wouldn't be able to understand your message. Okay, so you also want to look at, what's the difference between a specific purpose and a central idea? Well, a specific purpose is what you hope to accomplish in the speech. So this a really important early step in the process of developing a successful speech is to determine what your general purpose is and what your specific purpose is. And then another good idea is to formulate what we call a central idea, or it's also called a thesis statement. And that's one short sentence that basically says what you are working to accomplish in the speech. So if I were to elaborate with a real topic here, my topic might be an informative speech on massage therapy. So my general purpose would be to inform. My specific purpose, remember we bring that down, to inform my audience on the benefits of receiving regular massages. So we see what we did there. And then the central idea is one sentence that you might even find somewhere in the beginning of the speech that helps the listener know exactly what you're going to be talking about. So the central idea could be, at least, massage therapy is often seen as a as primarily a way of relieving stress, but its benefits also have deep connections to the person's overall health. So, again, all this at this, in this course at least, is just something to think about, but it can really help you to focus your topic, to design a speech that's effective. All right. Things to keep in mind when you create a central idea. Is it written as a complete sentence? Is it phrased as a statement rather than a question? Is it free from figurative language? Does it clearly encapsulate the main points to be discussed in the body of your speech? Is it relevant to the audience? Is it appropriate for a non-technical audience? So a few things to think about. And then we move on to step 3, and that's find material for your speech. All right, so once you have a topic and a clear idea of what you want to accomplish with that topic, you can begin to gather that material for support. And again, we already did this in week 3 for our persuasive speech, but this is just good knowledge to take with you for future speeches. So a few examples of materials that you could gather for your support in your speech would be narratives, and that's just a story that helps to illustrate your ideas. I've had people before who found stories of people online who had there's just a lot of things coming to mind, so I'm trying to narrow it down in my mind. But perhaps situations in which someone text and drove, and they would begin their speech with a story about someone who was texting and driving and what happened, and then they would go into the body of their speech and talk about why you shouldn't text and drive. So a narrative can be a great way to integrate some material and some support into your speech. Examples help us to illustrate points. So, when we give people an example of certain things, that helps. Testimony, that's going to be basically a firsthand account from someone who's been through something. And then facts and statistics, I absolutely make sure that my students know that you need facts and statistics in your speech. So remember that you always want good hard facts in your speech from reliable sources. If you can add in some narratives or whatever, that's great, but you always want facts and statistics in there. Basically, you want your research in there because that helps to support your point, especially in persuasive and informative speeches. And then from here, you're just going to design your speech. So, like I said before, a speech contains 3 major parts: an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. And I said this before, but it's really hard. It's really easy to say, okay, I need an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. The hard part is knowing how to construct those things. And so I want to walk you through that a little bit in just a moment. So, although the body is the middle of your speech, you really want to plan that out before your introduction and especially before your conclusion, because that'll help you to know what you need to say in both those areas. So, you want to limit the number of points in your body of your speech. Listeners will remember your speech better if you have a few main points and not an abundance of things. So, most speeches should have about 2 to 5 main points. And of course, lots of support for those main points. And so support, you want to support each point with some form of evidence, some form of research. So facts, examples, quotes from different people, statistics. Don't forget that when you're doing your speech, you need those verbal citations. I talked about that in a previous meeting. So if you've got a fact from the American Heart Association's website, and that was part of your research, that whatever it is that you gathered in week 3, you would say, according to the American Heart Association, and then give that piece of research. And order your points effectively. Obviously, you want your points ordered in a way that people remember them. So a few notes here about the different parts of a speech. Remember, it's an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. In the introduction, you need to do this. You need to grab the attention of the audience, and you need to preview your main points, and you need to build a good, trustworthy relationship with your audience. Then you move on to the body of your speech. You want to present the points that you just previewed. You want to present them each in detail individually until you get to your conclusion. Then you're going to signify your conclusion, review the main points that you talked about, and leave us with a memorable statement. I'm going to go into all that in just a moment, so don't panic. So again, what part of the speech should you design first? The body, because the body of your speech is going to outline those main points. And then from there, you can take that and create your introduction and your conclusion. All right, so then we move into step 5, which is organize your speech. So outlining your speech can really help you to put your design on paper and create the flow you're looking for. And that's why we do the assignments in both week 4 and week 5 to start organizing your speech for before you deliver it in week 6. Note cards are a great thing to use. When you're using note cards, don't put too much information on the note cards. It might be helpful to put things such as pause here, stress this point. It's not necessary, but it helps a lot of people when they are speaking in front of others. So, note cards, you want to avoid, I've seen students do this before. They will hold a large computer in their hands and deliver their speech. That is so distracting and it's not professional. Don't do that. They will read from a phone. They will read from their computer screen. People can tell when you're reading from your computer screen because your eyes are moving across the computer screen and you're not keeping focus with your audience and you sound robotic. So you want to avoid that. You want to instead create a few note cards, practice that speech so you know it, and then you can deliver it without having to look too long at the note cards. You can just glance at them here and there and deliver that speech. And so the next step is step 6, practice your speech. And that's what I was just talking about. You should sound, when you're delivering your speech, you should sound like you're talking with the audience, that you're not reading to them. You're also not reciting it from memory. And I'll talk about that in just a moment as well, why we wouldn't want to memorize our entire speech. So the best way to present your speech is to speak naturally. In this course, we use what's called the extemporaneous method. And so the extemporaneous method is, we actually haven't talked about that yet, so I'm going to take that off of there. I thought we had, but we have not. So the extemporaneous method is when you organize your speech well in advance, you've practiced it, you've put keywords and phrases only on note cards to help jog your memory as you go through delivering your speech, and you deliver the speech in that manner. So the wording might change a little bit based each time you deliver the speech. Your wording might change a little bit, but that's okay. Your main points stay the same. Your research stays the same, but it just allows you to talk with the audience instead of reading to them or reciting from memory, because we don't want to do that. So you want to prepare keywords on your note cards, and that'll help you deliver your speech. And then you want to really rehearse your speech. So use vocal variety when rehearsing your speech. What is that? Good question. That is controlling your tone and your pitch and your volume so you don't sound like you're talking like this during your entire speech because you are reading from your computer screen. You want to speak to your audience as if you're having a one-on-one conversation with them. And in conversations, we use vocal variety. Our volume goes up and down, our tone switches, all those different things. You want to show, I loosely say enthusiasm, but you want to show some form of passion about your speech topic. And I almost feel like that should say passion because enthusiasm reminds me of when a news anchor is delivering a very sad story on the news and the whole time they're smiling and looking cheery, and here it is, she's reporting on a car accident or something. That's terrible. You want to make sure you're passionate about what you're talking about, not necessarily overly cheerful. It just depends. And you want to suggest confidence. So many times I have students that have this fear of speaking in public, and so they have such bad anxiety. But I always tell them, you can fake confidence. In any part of your life, you can fake confidence. And so if you appear confident and you don't let the audience know that you're nervous or whatever, you don't point those things out, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to notice. So they're not going to notice if your hands are shaking. They're not going to notice if your voice is shaking. They're just going to see you delivering a speech and think, she's doing a great job or he's doing a great job. And then the last step is step up and do it. You've already gotten this far and you're at the very end. So just, take a deep breath, get up there and deliver the speech. That's step 7. I don't know why it said step 8. All right, so the parts of his speech. So I told you that I would go over this part with you, and I think this will really help you to really polish up that speech design that we've been working on so far. Let me take a sip of coffee real quick. Okay, so just like if you're in a class writing an essay paper, or perhaps you're constructing a letter, or even anything like that, a good presentation is made up of 3 parts: an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. So, what I'm about to teach you here is something you can actually use in all of your classes, not just with public speaking. It can be used when writing a paper as well. So, stay with me on this because it's great information. So, a speech, just like an essay or something like that, is made up of an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. Developing all 3 of these helps to make for a great presentation. Okay, that sounds great, Dr. Davis, but how do I do this? Well, good point. So many times students tell me, I know what I want to say in my speech, but when I sit down to type it out, I just don't know where to start. That's where a good introduction comes in. So let's talk about that. Introductions help to motivate the audience to listen. If you don't grab the attention of the audience within the first few seconds, and I mean first few seconds of your speech, they will lose interest. They will start doing something else. They will, look like they're listening, but they're not. So you want to do that first, grab their attention. So an introduction starts like this. It doesn't start with, "Hi, my name is, and today I want to talk about." That's a terrible introduction. You're not grabbing anybody's attention that way. Instead, you want to start with what we call an attention grabber. So, attention grabbers can be stories, quotes, questions, facts, or statistics. So, if I wanted to start my persuasive speech on why people should learn proper CPR, I might start with a statistic I found on the American Heart Association's website. And I'm just going to make one up because obviously I don't have one on hand, but I might say, the very first thing out of my mouth, not "Hi, my name is, today I want to talk about." The very first thing I would do was I would look at my audience and I'd say, "Did you know that according to the American Heart Association, 54% of U.S. Of Americans do not know how to perform CPR?" So you see what I did there? I actually included 2 things. I included a question and a statistic. So you wouldn't have to do that, but you just find something that works. So, if I wanted to do a presentation, a persuasive speech on why people shouldn't text and drive, I might start off with a story I found on a reliable website talking about an experience someone had from texting and driving. So I might start off there. So that should be the very first thing you say. If you're trying to, I don't know, persuade people to volunteer within their community, I might start off with a great quote about volunteer work. So, any of those things. Questions can either be participatory or rhetorical, excuse me. So that means you might say, by a show of hands, how many people in here, um, I'm trying to think of something. By a show of hands, how many people in here have ever donated blood? Okay, and so that's participatory. You're asking people to participate in the question. Another way of doing this is a rhetorical question, and it might be, you know, have you ever thought about what goes into registering to vote? Probably not. And then you would lead into your other part of the introduction there. So that's rhetorical. You're not expecting someone in the audience to stand up and go, "You know what? I have thought about that before." It's a rhetorical question. So stories, quotes, questions, facts, or statistics are the very first thing you want to say in your speech. Don't bury the lead, guys. Don't start off with, "Hi, my name is, and today I want to talk about," and then say some stuff and then finally get to your quote, because you're not going to make points for that. It should be the very first thing you say. So after you grab their attention, excuse me, after you grab their attention with either a story, quote, question, fact, or statistic, you want to preview your main points. And you do this, this is basically where you give them a taste of what you're going to talk about in your speech. So I might start off my "why you shouldn't text and drive" speech with a story about someone who was texting and driving. And then after I tell you that story, I might say, "And that's why today I want to talk about the dangers of texting and driving." And then I would lead into the speech. Okay? So you're letting people, that's why you don't have to say, hi, my name is, and today I want to talk about texting and driving. If you design an introduction well, you've grabbed their attention and you've already told them what you're going to talk about. So they know, you don't have to tell them again. So that's what you want to do. Now, let me give you an example of an introduction. All right. So let's say that I wanted to do a speech on, I wanted to do a persuasive speech on why you should enter the medical billing and coding profession. That's my persuasive speech topic. So my introduction might be this. I would start my recording, in this class at least, I would start my recording and I would look directly at the camera and I would say, did you know that the average medical coding and billing professional makes $43,410 a year? Further, certified coders earn $7,500 more per year than non-certified colleagues. In addition to this, because of a shortage of people entering this field, CareerStep.com, verbal citation, do you hear that? CareerStep.com expects a 21% job growth in this field. Pretty interesting, right? So with that being said, that's why today, so I'm previewing my main points. I just gave you in all of that, the statistics and the facts. I gave you my attention getter or my attention grabber. We call them either one. And then right here, I'm previewing my main points. So I said pretty interesting, right? So with that being said, that's why today we're going to discuss the benefits, job potential available, and why you should enter the medical coding and billing program. Good communicators are needed. All right. So I started off with a lot of different things. So you don't have to make it this intricate, but I asked a question with some facts and statistics thrown in there. When I said careerstep.com, I gave a verbal citation. Again, you don't have to throw that in the introduction, but I'm just showing you what I did there. And then I previewed my main points by saying, so with that being said, today we're going to talk about basically, and I outline what we're going to talk about in the speech. And so from there, I'm literally going to take each of the points I said, we're going to discuss the benefits. So that's going to be a main point I'm going to talk about in the body of my speech. Job potential available, something I'm going to talk about in the body of my speech, and why you should enter the medical billing, coding and billing program. Another point I'm going to make in the body of my speech. All right. So introductions, start with an attention getter, then preview your main points. Attention getters or attention grabbers, they're interchangeable, the term. Can be stories, quotes, questions, facts, or statistics. Great way to open your speech. All right, and that leads us to the body of the speech. So the body of speech is basically just breaking down the points that you've already previewed in your introduction. So we said in our introduction we were going to talk about, discuss the benefits, the job potential available, and why you should enter the program. Okay, so in the body of your speech, you're going to start off there. You're going to start off with discussing the benefits. That would be your first main point. And then your second main point would be the job potential that I talked about. And the next one would be why you should enter the program. So it's that simple. It's laid out. So the body is literally your main point and support for that. So I'd say, all right, we're going to go ahead and jump into the benefits of the medical coding and billing program. And that's where I'd give examples of things and I would discuss research about it and I would just give you further detail on it. And so I would do that for each of my main points. A good rule of thumb is to have at least 3 main points in your speech and to really elaborate on those main points. So if you've got 10 main points in your speech, you're not elaborating enough on your main points. Curb it down to about 3 to 5 and then really work on developing those main points. And don't forget your verbal citations. A simple, according to wherever you got the research and then giving the fact, it's a great way to boost credibility in your speech. And then after you've done all that, you move into the conclusion. So conclusions just help us to give closure to the speech. I can't tell you how many times people will come up with a great introduction, they'll hit the body of the speech, and then they'll go, and that concludes my speech. Well, that's not a good way to conclude your speech. There's no closure there. So instead, we want to create closure for the audience. Conclusions give closure. They help to signify that your speech is ending. They recap information for the audience so that everybody remembers it. And then they leave the audience with something to think about. So a good conclusion is designed like this. A signpost for the conclusion. So after I've discussed everything in the body, I would say, in conclusion, or to conclude, or to sum things up, any of that would work. I would then restate my points. I could literally grab those from the introduction I already designed. So I might say, in conclusion, that's why we talked today about, this was our introduction, remember? That's why today we talked about the benefits, job potential available, and why you should enter the medical coding and billing program. All right? It's literally just like that. And then I would end with a memorable statement. And a memorable statement helps to bring the speech full circle. So again, a memorable statement is just like an attention grabber that we did in the introduction. It's just at the very end of your speech. So you'd either come up with another story, another quote, a question, a fact, or statistic to leave your audience with. So remember, signpost, in conclusion's fine, restate your main points, end with a memorable statement. Now, let me give you an example of what that might look like. All right. So here's an example conclusion for the speech that we just loosely delivered. In conclusion, see, that's your signpost. In conclusion, today we discussed the benefits, job potential available, and why you should enter the medical coding and billing program. So you see here, there's 3 things in a conclusion: a signpost, restate your main points, end with a memorable statement. So what did we do here? In conclusion, that's your signpost. Right in here where we said today we discuss the benefits, job potential available, and why you should enter the medical coding and billing program. That's when we restated our main points. So the only thing we have left to do is to end with a memorable statement. And let's see what we did there. So with that being said, and in the words of George Washington Carver, not only did I give a verbal citation for that, but I'm giving a quote for my memorable statement. So out of this list, I decided a quote would be best fitting for me to end this speech. So, education is the key to unlock the golden door of freedom. Choose to educate yourself in this desirable field today. Now, let me do it one more time as a whole so you really get it. All right, so here's my conclusion. In conclusion, today we discussed the benefits, job potential available, and why you should enter the medical coding and billing program. So, with that being said, and in the words of George Washington Carver, education is the key to unlock the golden door of freedom. Choose to educate yourself in this desirable field today. Great, right? You feel like, okay, wow, the speech ended. Now, the problem is a lot of times when people skip the conclusion and they just say, and that ends my speech, or something along those lines, and you don't give that closure, people don't remember your speech very well. And if you've ever sat in on a presentation where someone's done that and people didn't know whether to clap or not to clap, they didn't know if the speech was actually done, a lot of times that's because they lacked a compelling conclusion. So they didn't know, is it done or not? If you do something following the design I gave you, such as this, for your conclusion in your speech, people will know that you are finished with your speech. All right? Okay, so with that being said, let's flip gears for just a second. Let's talk about your assignments this week, just really quickly. So it's week 5. And so all you need to do is you will obviously log into the course. This is the home screen that you always see. Don't forget to check those announcements and make sure you've read everything so far. And you'll just go down to modules and you will scroll down to the week 5 area. And you'll just move through this in order like we've talked about for every single instructor session so far. So we're going to start off at the top. And once you go through everything in order, then you can go back, and if you just need to you need to go to the discussion, you can just click on the discussion. If you just need to go to the assignment, you can click on that. But I suggest going through it one time as a whole and then going back and doing anything that you still need to do. So week 5 overview. As always, this provides you with a summary of what we are working on this week, and it discusses the course objectives we hope that you achieve by the end of the week. Your to-do list is here, just like it always is. We're going to click Next. It's going to tell you what your readings are for week 5. We click Next. If you click on this, as always, it'll pull up your e-textbook, and you can read what you were assigned to read for the week. Click Next. We've got the week 5 interactive lecture. As always, just click on the link. It'll populate in a different window, and you can move through it and make sure that you've read everything in the lecture. Once you're done with that, click Next. You've got the discussion. As always, your initial post is due by Wednesday night at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. You need to respond to at least 2 fellow classmates in a thought-provoking manner by Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. So this week in our discussion, we're looking at the following. It says, explain what are some of the significant differences between face-to-face communication and communication by way of digital technology, such as emails, texting, internet, social media, and so forth. To be successful in today's business environment, which model do you believe requires the greatest degree of mastery? Explain. Which model are you most comfortable and why? So that's what you need to address in your initial post. And then in your response post, it says you might elaborate upon some of the pros and cons of both types of communication. Consider sharing some difficult experiences you've had communicating both face to face and via some form of technology, and how might your communication efforts have been improved. What would the interaction have looked like had you have used the opposite model? So that's some things you can discuss in your responses to your peers. All right. And so once you've completed that, you'll click Next. As always, once this meeting closes, I'll post your week 5 instructor session here. So if you need to go back and look at it, I know there was a lot of material covered. You can always go back to the instructor session and pause it and jot down notes, whatever you need to do, and that should be helpful to you. All right, and then we click Next, and that takes us to the week 5 assignment. So in this assignment, you are basically polishing up your materials from the week 4 assignment. So we'll click on the speech project details. Okay, and so we have the directions here as normal. Some of the stuff in the rubric is going to change, so just hold tight on that. And you're basically cleaning up based on my feedback from your week 4 assignment. Polish up whatever I asked you to do, clean that up, and then that way in week 6 when you deliver the speech, you're going to be ready for it. You've already made the final touches to it. All right. And then we click Next, and that takes us to week 6, which is obviously not our week. So you finished with week 5. So I'm going to click on Modules. I'm going to scroll back down to week 5, and you went through all of these different things. Okay, and don't forget that your week 5 assignment's due on Sunday as always. All righty. So with that being said, that wraps up our week 5 instructor session. As always, hang around if you've got some questions. I'll be happy to answer them. If not, and you are watching the recording and you do have questions, feel free to reach out to me via email. As always, you can click the inbox here and send me an email in the course, or you can send a separate email to sdavis@fortiscollege.edu, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. So enjoy week 5. It's a great week. Got some great learning skills and techniques there, and I look forward to seeing your speeches in week 6. Have a great week. Bye-bye.